Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, The Psychology of Digital Personalization. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Mario Kiriakou. I'm one of the co-founders of a digital agency called Ratio. We're a site called Solution Partner. We work with a range of customers from large to very small across a different range of services, from optimization, strategy and technology. But really the crux of what we do is we work with organizations to help them get the most out of marketing technology, to in effect translate the vision of strategy and map it to technology so they can leverage it to its fullest potential in order to do what matters for them, engaging their end customers. Without further ado, let's go into the presentation because we've got quite a bit to cover off today. So today we're going to look at two aspects. One, we're going to look at in a little bit of detail what is digital psychology, what are some sort of the underlying methodologies that support the theories behind digital psychology, and then we're going to look at how we can apply this technique to a digital tactic today, and we're going to look at the application to digital personalization. So what is digital psychology? Is it just another buzzword? Well, here at Ratio, we don't actually. We talk about it quite a lot, and sometimes we talk about digital psychology without even using the phrase. It's about understanding customers. And why is it important? Well, it's important because customers are faced with an enormous amount of choice. Unless your organization sells an extremely simple product or service, you're most likely to have an enormous amount of options and choices across your website. When audience members visit your site, they will belong to different segments, different personas, different demographics, and you'll have different content and services which are set up to meet the needs of different people. But from the consumer's point of view, from the customer's point of view, it's difficult to know which content is relevant for them. It's also difficult for them to navigate and identify what it is going to solve a specific problem. So digital psychology at its core is about understanding what is truly motivating a customer, what information do they want, in order that we can present them with the right choice at the right time. It's also to understand that with choice comes, without even actually even thinking about it, it leads into a lengthening of customer journeys. So one of the key rationales behind digital psychology is trying to understand what customers want in terms of information, in order so we as a marketer can design a digital journey that breaks it down into chunks. And why is that important? From an optimization point of view, if we break down the journey into chunks, we can focus on, is this chunk as relevant as possible to this customer by placing measurable and optimizable goals in order that we can continually iterate and improve the experience. But in a nutshell, digital psychology is about designing each and every touch point with a couple of things in mind. One, to persuade and convince your users to take a positive action. And if you think about your own website and look at how many touch points you have across your pages, across your campaigns, it adds up to the hundreds and hundreds. And the positive actions is not necessarily the final sale. It's every minute action a customer can take leading up towards that sale, from reading content, viewing videos, every action which they can take. Digital psychology is about designing it in such a way as that they will take that action. But how can we apply it to personalization? Well, many organizations are talking about personalization, but very few actually are leveraging it and applying it to improve the experience for their own customers. The quote we have on screen, I'm going to read it out actually. It's from Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon. If we have 4.5 million customers, we shouldn't have one store, we should have 4.5 million stores. And this is an old quote. This is from the late 90s, so Amazon was in its early infancy, and before it became known for delivering this extremely personalized experience based on a deep understanding of their customers. But for many organizations, they understand the idea of delivering a more relevant experience for their customers. But at the same time, for many marketers, it's also quite a scary proposition because it sounds quite complex. Marketers are struggling with their own challenges at the moment. The idea of applying personalization can be quite daunting. It looks like it's quite complex. And what we're going to do throughout today's presentation, is show how digital psychology can enable you to make a relevant experience, but also some of the ways that you can begin to apply this and break down some of the different approaches you can take towards building a personalization plan. One of the questions we get asked time and time again is where personalization can be applied. And when we talked about earlier on about one of the key areas of digital psychology is designing each element of each element of digital experience, each touch point, in order to persuade and convince visitors to take a positive action. If you take that approach and apply it to your own digital marketing, you'll quickly identify where personalization can be applied. In effect, it can be applied across every touch point, across the digital ecosystem, across your digital properties, from the initial search, which is driving visitors to your site, the way they engage, the way they view content. Every touch point has the potential to apply personalization to it. Now, as we go throughout today's presentation, we're going to show why you probably won't want to personalize every single aspect of the digital experience. You'll want to start the basics, get the foundational layer in place, but the end objective, as it is, you can potentially apply personalization at every touch point. But from a practical standpoint, what does that actually mean? Yes, we can personalize everything. But in reality, we know that's not going to be the case. So if we're going to look to apply this ourselves, we're going to go away after today's presentation and sit down with a team and begin to map out how we can potentially look to do this. What should we do? Well, we've got a couple of steps we normally work with clients. It goes about saying, one, it's about having the customer at its heart. So when we talk about digital psychology, and almost everything you do in marketing, it's about trying to understand who your audience is and trying to understand what it is they are looking to obtain from the customer, from your organization. That's all well and good, but translating some of that offline customer persona research, etc., and mapping it to your website is the challenge. The question we get asked many times is, we've done all this research, but we still have no idea who is on our website at any given time. And that goes into sort of the foundational layer of where does the data sit that measures and captures all the data on how your customers interact on your site. Identify where your data silos are, whether on the website, whether they sit in CRM systems, on e-commerce systems, etc., email platforms, and look to identify where that data is and look to see how you can potentially connect that data. Because what matters from the marketer's point of view in designing the experience is having the ability to extract the right customer intelligence. So it's all well and good knowing you have 3 or 4 key target audience groups, unless we're able to actually track those audience groups across your website and extract that information to understand how they're interacting at every touch point, then it's almost impossible to do sort of the fun, cooler stuff further along the line, which is designing the personalized experiences, designing the personalized scenarios. So it really all starts at the data layer of what data are we capturing on our customers. And one area that often gets left out when organizations are looked to deploy personalization is they deploy an element of personalization and stop. And the truth is, unless you apply optimization and continual iteration to personalization, it's almost irrelevant. The whole point about personalization is you are deploying it in order to deliver a better, more relevant experience for your customers. But the only way you could do that is to continue measure it in order to tweak and change it and improve it over time. What do we mean by customer motivations, understanding how the customer interacts, what are their challenges? Well, going to show you an example of one we ran through with a legal customer recently. So the example on screen is a motivational map. We took we broke down their different audience segments, and we extracted one. The example on screen is from a law firm targeting their in-house legal counsel. So what we wanted to do was understand for this one specific audience group what truly drove this individual, what were their internal challenges, abstracting it from whatever service the organization is offering and looking to sell to this individual, trying to understand what it is that drives them on a day-to-day basis. And it's not surprising, there's elements such as, for a legal in-house counsel, information around mergers and acquisitions, supporting the business to expand, contracts, business policy, etc. But it's also key to understand that target audience groups also have external challenges which sit outside of organization, which directly impact how they do their role. So in the case of this legal example, not surprisingly, it comes up for many of our clients, elements such as Brexit, so the potential impact Brexit can have on contract law, potential changes of regulation, some of the byproducts of Brexit with currency fluctuations. What does that mean for the way their organisations manage exporting and importing of goods and services? It matters creating a motivational map for your customer audiences, because you can begin to build up the sort of challenges that they are experiencing day to day, and also some of the content they require to meet their challenges. So for example, when this law firm is looking to design their site, to look and design a digital experience, the question they should be asking themselves at each step of the way is, what are we offering that helps this individual do their job better, in effect? Do we have the right content? And is it set up in a way that allows them to discover it quickly? Or are we continually pushing our core services? And for most organizations, the tendency is to push and promote your products and services. But the reality is only a percentage of visitors to your website at any given moment have a required need for your products or services. But what do you do with the rest of your audience? What the potential lies in understanding what information you want, what information your customers really want, and developing the insights to continually nurture your audience. Because why should a customer come back to your website? Insight is normally the reason why they should come back, because you provide a deep understanding of what this individual wants to do, what their challenges are, and you're looking to meet those challenges, constantly providing the right information. Now we're going to run through some of the practical steps you can put in place to build a workable personalization plan. So for us, it's about starting with a data foundation. So taking that motivational map way of mapping out your challenges of your customers in order to truly understand who they are and what they need. So what drives your customers? And understanding what problems are you trying to solve as a business for your customers. And one that actually doesn't come up, should come up more often really, is how do your customers like to interact? Now there's the traditional example of do they prefer mobile to desktop, but it's also trying to understand the types of content or format of content they prefer to consume information. Is it in blog posts? Is it long form blog posts as opposed to short form blog posts? Is it videos? If it is videos, do we have a way of measuring and understanding? Do they prefer 10-second videos, 1-minute videos, 5-minute videos, etc.? But it's about understanding how they prefer to interact, and that really goes into your data foundational layer and understanding which touch points are relevant, identifying the touch points and setting up measurable goals so you can actually begin to track how customers and visitors are consuming or engaging with your touch points along the way. And asking yourself seriously as an organization, if we've understood the challenges our target audience is facing, how can we as a business look to meet and exceed those requirements? When we talk about personalization, there can be a tendency sometimes to focus on the, I suppose, the conversion rate optimization side of it. How can we can leverage personalization to drive a sale? And of course, personalization, like many digital tactics, ultimately is about um, how do you support the business's objective of increasing revenue, reducing churn, etc. Whatever it is the business you're looking to achieve. But it's important to understand from the customer's point of view, they're not interested in your business objectives. They're interested in as good experience as possible. So when you're looking to design personalization, design a personalization strategy and map it to your organization and your way of engaging with customers, it's important to create a trickle-down effect. So the example on screen is a trickle-down map. So understanding from a high level what you want to achieve as a business. Increased donations, sales, etc., and understanding the sub-segments. What digital goals help support your business objective of, for example, driving more sales, and you can begin to build out in effect a map of digital touch points and key KPIs and goals. Filling in a form, viewing a video, consuming certain types of content, opening an email, clicking through to an email, downloading a white paper, etc. Because it's important to understand that each of these touch points are in effect feeding to your optimization plan later on. We're going to look to optimize each of these strategically and surgically, because by mapping them out in almost like a pyramid structure, we can identify the 5, 10, 15, 20 different touch points that we need to continually design a personalization plan around, but B, create a optimization plan to support in order for us to achieve our goals. You also need to look to extract customer intelligence. So you need to build up a picture of how your customers are interacting across your website. And we've talked about this before. And that could take many forms, such as traditional areas of looking at your Google Analytics, if you're using a platform such as Sitecore, delving deep into your Sitecore Analytics, even extracting it and combining data sets in order to get deeper insight, looking at heat mapping, customer research, etc. But really, it goes into a couple of core things. One, establishing goals are key strategic areas of your site. So if you want to go away after today, you like the idea of applying a personalization plan built around your customer motivations, it could be like a tendency to pull your marketing team together and start brainstorming ideas on, we could personalize this or personalize that part of the digital experience. That's great, but actually you need to take a step back and try to understand what are the key strategic parts of your website which are relevant to the different customer segments, and focus your personalization efforts around those parts. And we're going to talk about capturing user intent. So I'm going to show an example of sort of the front end of how we can potentially, how customers are interacting across your site. And then we're going to look at an example. Today, a great example, we work quite closely and quite heavily with Sitecore. So we're going to look at quite quickly how a powerful marketing platform like Sitecore captures all of this information. So what do we mean by capturing user intent? Visitors are driven to your site by a myriad of different traffic acquisition strategies. A quick look in GA will give you a good overview of the channels and sources which are driving individuals to your site. But it's important to understand that every time a visitor comes to your site and interacts with your website, they are leaving behind a digital fingerprint. They're leaving behind a footprint. So we know more than just the fact that they've been driven by a specific search campaign or come off the back of a specific email. We know the type of content they've looked at. We know what they've clicked on, what they've viewed. We know if they've gone away and returned. We begin to build up quite a large, complex picture of what our audience segments and visitors are interested in on our website. But that's useless unless we have a way as a marketer of displaying that user intent and extracting meaningful information. So I'm going to talk through an example from Sitecore. So Sitecore has a really powerful tool called the X profile, the experience profile. And if you're familiar with CRMs, and CRM contact cards, for example, you'll have a good idea of what the experience profile is. In effect, it's a web version of a CRM contact card. So when we talked about on the previous slide about your traffic acquisition strategies driving tons of visitors to your site, and then them doing your visitors interacting across your site and leaving behind a digital fingerprint, the Sitecore experience profile in effect allows you to display that user intent at the individual level. But it's important to understand you have two types of visitors in effect. You have your unknown visitors and known visitors. So the majority of your visitors will always remain unknown, but it doesn't mean you can't offer a relevant, personalized digital experience based around an understanding of what's motivating them. Because we're capturing a large amount of contextual information, not just what drove someone. We understand what pages they viewed, what content they're interested in, what segments they sit into. Do they belong to a specific profile or persona? And when they do complete a action such as filling in a form or purchasing a product, we can then convert them from an unknown visitor to a known visitor, and now we have a name and a contact against them. And then we can push them further along into the digital marketing funnel in terms of now we can map that individual to a marketing automation strategy, and we can nurture them over time. So what are some of the key steps here? I want to go away from today and create our personalization plan. So for us, 4 areas you should look at in individual components. Planning. So look at your current solution. Is it set up for personalization? Does it give you the ability to personalize? Do you have the right data? Do you have an understanding of who your customers are and what your customers want from you as an organization? Then look at establishing that foundational layer. Identify what you're looking to achieve as a business. Identify the key strategic goals. Identify your digital supporting goals. Set measurable events against these. Look at identifying and mapping these against your website and the rest of your digital ecosystem. And then sit down with the team and brainstorm ideas around personalization. Doesn't have to be complex. Get everyone in the room, post-it notes, an Excel sheet, and start coming up with ideas around personalization, personalized scenarios, but mapped against those strategic areas that we mentioned in that you should cover off in the foundational layer. Because you're brainstorming ideas which are more strategic and surgical as opposed to just shooting wildly at the problem. And finally, sit down with your team to design a continuous optimization plan, create a testing framework, create an A/B testing plan, and map it against those key strategic digital touch points and those personalization scenarios you created in the previous 3 areas. One thing we get asked quite often is, great, this is all good, but this might take quite a while. We completely disagree. We think you can go from nothing to something in a very short time frame, but you may want to build a business case. You might find it difficult to obtain resources from your business around creating this approach to personalization because the business doesn't believe it's going to drive value. So what can we do now in order to show some quick value in order for us to build a business case and prove this drives real value. So one of the things we always say is optimize what you have. Don't rip up your entire website. You don't need to go through an entire website rebuild. You can just look to optimize what you currently have on your site. So take your homepage. For the majority of organizations, the homepage is their biggest traffic line. The majority of the traffic goes to the homepage. Again, you can check this against your own analytics, but if it is the case, you can look to optimize or create a personalization scenario around optimizing your homepage. So areas such as identifying the last what a visitor did on their last visit, identifying what sector someone belongs to, what profile they belong to, and their campaign. We have about another dozen actually that you can also apply to these, which I'm happy to share. Why is it important? Well, we talked about at the beginning of today's presentation, Jeff Bezos' quote of 4.5 million customers and 4.5 million optimized, personalized pages. Well, the reality is that initially you wouldn't look to do that. What you'll look to do is identify segments that we could in effect bucket certain groups into in order to begin to deploy personalization for those visitors in order for us to begin to measure the outcome. And one which we think is quite great because it is extremely measurable is around campaign personalization. So we mentioned campaign personalization on the previous slide around optimizing on the homepage. So what do we mean by that? Well, as a marketer, you'll be running campaigns on a regular basis anyway. So we can identify the channels which are driving traffic to your landing pages. So the example I'm going to give for one we did for a recent client is around optimizing PPC campaigns, so paid for Google campaigns. In effect, what we would do is create tracking codes, apply these to the 30 or 40 different AdWords campaign, which allow us to capture and pass over the keywords which are driving someone to a landing page or to a home page, for example. You could then begin to create personalized scenarios based on the specific keywords which have driven someone, so switching around images, switching around CTAs and messaging in order to be as relevant as humanly possible, and then passing that data over into an automation system and creating personalized experience around the information we've captured so far, and setting measurable goals for this. And the simple reason why we love campaign personalization is if your objective is, for example, to increase sales, get more people to sign up for a product or download a white paper, we've already got benchmark figures, and what we're looking to do is deploy personalization to increase in effect your conversion rate across these touch points. So it's a nice way of proving the value but also building a business case for the future. Well, that brings me to the end of today's presentation, which leaves me to say thank you very much, and thank you for taking time to listen to today's webinar.